The sun was setting over Outpost Jindo 7, painting the dusty horizon in shades of orange and purple. Hyunwoo wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the mining drill he had been fixing for the past 3 hours. The colony was small, sitting on the edge of human space where few people wanted to live, but it was home and his repair shop kept food on the table. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Gia said from her corner of the workshop. The 6-year-old girl sat on an old cargo box, swinging her legs back and forth. Her school tablet lay forgotten beside her. "5 more minutes, sweetheart," Hyunwoo said, tightening the last bolt. "Then we'll go inside and make dinner." Gia nodded and picked up her tablet again. She was a good kid, patient and kind like her mother had been. Hyunwoo's chest tightened at the thought of Yoonji. 3 years had passed since the accident, but some days the loss felt fresh as morning. The drill hummed to life, and Hyunwoo allowed himself a small smile. Another job done. Another day of keeping his daughter safe and fed in this rough place. He shut down the machine and started putting away his tools. "Daddy, I need to use the bathroom," Gia announced, already climbing down from her perch. "Go straight there and come straight back," Hyunwoo said. "Don't wander around outside." "I won't," Gia promised, but he knew her curious nature. She was always finding interesting rocks or watching the cargo ships land. He heard the workshop door close and continued cleaning up. The outpost was relatively safe, but parents worried. That was their job. He was putting away the wrench set when he heard Gia scream. Hyunwoo's heart stopped. He grabbed the plasma cutter from his workbench and ran outside, terror flooding his veins. The scream had come from behind the storage unit next to his shop. "Gia," he shouted, rounding the corner. His daughter stood there unharmed but wide-eyed, staring at something on the ground. Hyunwoo's relief crashed into new fear when he saw what had frightened her. A Drakari lay crumpled against the storage unit wall. Hyunwoo had seen pictures of the alien warriors, but never in person. She was tall, even collapsed on the ground with scales that shimmered deep green and gold in the fading light. Her armor was cracked and burned, showing wounds underneath. One of her arms hung at a wrong angle. Her breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps. The Dragon Lady, people called her kind. The Drakari Empire had been pushing into human space for 20 years, burning colonies and claiming worlds. They were the enemy, ruthless and proud. "Get behind me," Hyunwoo said quietly, putting himself between his daughter and the alien. "Daddy, she's hurt," Gia whispered. "Look at her arm." The Drakari's eyes flickered open. They were golden, with vertical pupils that focused on Hyunwoo with difficulty. She tried to speak, but only a weak hiss came out. Her good hand moved toward the weapon on her belt. Hyunwoo raised the plasma cutter. His finger hovered over the activation button. One press and the threat would be gone. One press and his daughter would be safe. The Drakari's hand fell away from her weapon. She didn't have the strength to draw it. Her eyes closed again and her breathing grew even more labored. "Daddy," Gia said softly. "She looks like she hasn't eaten in a long time." "Like those stray dogs we saw last month," Hyunwoo's mind raced. He should call security. This was a Drakari warrior, probably a scout or survivor from some battle. They would want to interrogate her, learn what they could, and then execute her. That was how wars worked, but Gia was tugging on his sleeve, looking up at him with her mother's eyes. "Can we help her?" his daughter asked. "Just a little?" "Sweetheart, she's dangerous," Hyunwoo said, keeping his voice calm. "Her people are trying to hurt us." "But she's not hurting us right now," Gia said with the simple logic of childhood. "She's just lying there. And she looks so hungry." The Drakari's breathing hitched. Blood seeped through her armor, dark purple against the gold scales. She would die here if no one helped her. Maybe that was justice. Maybe that was one less enemy to worry about. "I have my lunchbox," Gia said suddenly. She had already pulled it from her school bag. "I didn't eat all my rice. Can I give it to her?" "Gia, no!" Hyunwoo started, but his daughter had already moved forward. She was fast when she wanted to be, darting around his legs before he could grab her. She knelt beside the Drakari, opening her lunchbox with determined little hands. "Here," Gia said, holding out a rice ball. "You can have this. It has tuna inside." "That's my favorite." The Drakari's eyes opened again. She looked at the child kneeling beside her with confusion that crossed species. Her lips pulled back, showing sharp teeth, but it wasn't a snarl. It was bewilderment. Gia kept holding out the rice ball, patient and unafraid. The alien warrior's good hand moved, trembling, and took the offered food. She brought it to her mouth and ate with desperate, weak bites. A sound came from her throat, something between a growl and a sob. Hyunwoo stood frozen. watching his 6-year-old daughter feed their enemy like she was helping an injured bird. Everything he knew about being a good father, about keeping his child safe, screamed at him to pull Gia away and call security right now. But he saw something in that moment that made him pause. He saw the HFY warrior, this proud member of a conquering empire, crying as a human child showed her mercy. He saw his daughter being exactly who her mother had raised her to be, someone who saw suffering and wanted to help. "Daddy," Gia said, looking back at him. "She's still hungry. Can we give her more?" Hyunwoo looked around. They were alone behind the storage unit. No one had seen them yet. No one knew. He could still call security. He could still do the right thing by the rules. Or he could do something else. "Go inside and get the medical kit from the bathroom," he said quietly. "And bring blankets from the closet." Gia's face lit up. "We're going to help her?" "We're going to do something very stupid," Hyunwoo said. "And you can never tell anyone about this. Do you understand? Not your friends, not your teachers, no one. I promise," Gia said solemnly, then ran toward the house. Hyunwoo looked down at the HFY. She watched him with those golden eyes, still chewing the rice ball his daughter had given her. There was a question in that gaze. "I don't know why I'm doing this," Hyunwoo said to her in Korean, knowing she couldn't understand. "But my daughter just taught me something about who we're supposed to be." He knelt down and began examining her wounds, careful of the sharp edges of her broken armor. He was a mechanic, not a doctor, but he knew how to fix things that were broken. Maybe that was enough. The dragon lady made a sound, soft and questioning. "You picked a strange place to die," Hyunwoo told her, "and an even stranger person to find you." Gia came running back with supplies, and together they began the work of saving an enemy's life. 3 days had passed since Gia found the dragon lady behind the storage unit. 3 days of Hyunwoo barely sleeping, jumping at every sound outside his workshop. He had moved the HFY warrior into a hidden space beneath his main workroom, a storage area he usually kept for spare parts and old equipment. The alien was healing slowly. Her broken arm was splinted with metal rods from his supply cabinet. Her wounds were cleaned and bandaged with everything Hyunwoo could find in the outpost's small medical center. Without raising suspicion, he told the clinic worker he had cut himself badly and needed extra supplies. Gia visited the HFY every morning before school and every evening after. She would sit beside the makeshift bed and talk about her day, showing drawings she made or reading from her school books. The alien warrior listened, her golden eyes tracking the child's movements with an expression Hyunwoo couldn't quite read. On the 4th morning, the HFY spoke. "Why?" The word came out rough and broken, filtered through a translation device Hyunwoo had rigged from old communications equipment. The device wasn't perfect, but it was something. Hyunwoo looked up from the engine part he was pretending to fix. He had moved his whole workstation to the hidden room so he could watch over his dangerous guest. "Why what? Why help me?" The HFY's voice was stronger now. She pushed herself up slightly, wincing at the pain. "Your kind and mine are enemies." Gia looked up from her coloring book. "Because you were hungry, and that's sad." The alien warrior stared at the child for a long moment. "Humans confuse me," she said finally through the crackling translator. "We confuse ourselves too," Hyunwoo muttered. He set down his tools and approached carefully. "Can you tell me your name?" The HFY was silent, then spoke a series of clicks and hisses that the translator couldn't handle. She tried again. "Calyx, I was Commander Calyx of the 3rd Fleet." "Was?" Hyunwoo caught the word. Calyx's scales seemed to darken, a ripple of color that spoke of emotion. "I am traitor now, marked for death by my own kind. What did you do?" Hyunwoo asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. "I refused," Calyx said, her good hand clenched into a fist. "My commander ordered attack on human settlement. Small place, families and children. We were to use the burning poison, the weapon that kills everything and leaves no survivors." Gia stopped coloring. "That's mean." "Yes," Calyx agreed, looking at the child. "Very mean. I said no. I tried to stop it. I destroyed the poison weapons on my ship. My commander declared me enemy and ordered my death." Hyunwoo felt cold. "Did the attack happen?" "I do not know," Calyx said quietly. "They shot my escape pod as I fled. I crashed here. I have been hiding and running for many days before you found me." The weight of what Hyunwoo had done pressed down on him. He wasn't just hiding an enemy soldier. He was hiding someone who had betrayed her own people, If the Drakari found her, they would come here. If human security found her, they would execute her. There was no safe path forward. A knock on the workshop's main door made them all freeze. "Stay quiet," Hyunwoo whispered urgently. He covered Calyx with a tarp and scattered spare parts around to make it look natural. Jia quickly gathered her coloring supplies. Hyunwoo climbed the stairs to the main workshop and opened the door. His stomach dropped when he saw who stood there. Tae Yang, the outpost's security chief, was a tall man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had been a soldier before taking this posting, and he ran security with military precision. "Good morning, Hyunwoo," Tae Yang said pleasantly. "Mind if I come in?" "Of course not," Hyunwoo said, stepping aside. His heart hammered in his chest. "What brings you by?" "Just routine checks," Tae Yang said, walking through the workshop with careful observation. "We've had some unusual power draws in this section. Medical supplies have been going faster than normal, too, making sure everything is okay." "Everything's fine," Hyunwoo said, trying to sound casual. "I've been working on some complex repairs." "Need more power for the equipment?" Tae Yang nodded slowly. His gaze swept over the workbenches, the tools, the half-finished projects. "And the medical supplies?" "I cut myself pretty badly last week." Hyunwoo held up his hand where he had deliberately reopened an old scar. "Needed to patch up." "I see." Tae Yang walked toward the stairs leading to the storage area. "What's down there?" "Just parts and old equipment," Hyunwoo said quickly. "Nothing interesting. Mind if I take a look?" Tae Yang's tone was still pleasant, but it wasn't really a question. Jia chose that moment to appear from behind a workbench. "Chief Tae Yang," she said brightly. "Did you bring candy?" "You always bring candy." Tae Yang's serious expression softened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of wrapped candy. "Here you go, little one. Studying hard in school?" "Yes, sir," Jia said, taking the candy with both hands. "Do you want to see my drawings? I drew the new cargo ship that landed yesterday." "I would love to," Tae Yang said, allowing the child to take his hand and lead him away from the stairs. Hyunwoo breathed quietly. His daughter had just saved them, though she probably didn't realize it. He watched as Jia showed Tae Yang her pictures, chattering about school and friends and the shapes of clouds. After 10 minutes, Tae Yang stood up. "Well, I should finish my rounds. You two take care." He paused at the door. "Hyunwoo, if you notice anything unusual, let me know. We've had some strange sensor readings in the valley. Might be nothing, but we're being careful." "Of course," Hyunwoo said. "Always." When the security chief was gone, Hyunwoo locked the door and leaned against it, his legs weak. That had been too close. He went back down to find Calyx sitting up, her translator in her good hand. "Your young one saved me," the Drakari said. "She is clever." "Too clever sometimes," Hyunwoo said. He sat down heavily on a crate. "We can't keep doing this. Tae Yang is suspicious. He'll come back with a warrant to search properly next time." "Then let me go," Calyx said. "I am strong enough to walk now. I will leave and you will be safe." "You won't make it 3 kilometers before you're spotted or collapse," Hyunwoo said. "Your arm is still broken and half your wounds could reopen." "Then what?" Calyx asked, and for the first time Hyunwoo heard something like fear in her voice. Jia climbed down the stairs, having heard everything. "We don't let bad things happen to our friends," she said simply. "You're our friend now. Right, Daddy?" Hyunwoo looked at his daughter, then at the alien warrior who had defied her own empire to protect human children. He thought about Eunji and what she would do. His wife had always been braver than him, always willing to stand up for what was right even when it was hard. "Right," he said finally. "But we need help. Real help. From who?" Calyx asked. Hyunwoo pulled out his communicator. "Someone I trust. Someone who might be able to do something." He looked at the contact information for Subin, the colonial administrator. She was fair, practical, and had the authority to make decisions that mattered. It was a huge risk. She could arrest all of them. She could call in the military, but she might also listen. "Before I do this," Hyunwoo said to Calyx, "I need to know something. The intelligence you have about Drakari plans. Is it real? Could it save lives?" Calyx met his eyes. "I know fleet positions, attack schedules, command codes. I know where the Empire plans to strike next. 3 colonies, thousands of your people." She paused. "Including one called Busan Station. Many children live there." Hyunwoo's hand tightened on the communicator. Busan Station was a major colony, a hub for families and trade. If the Drakari attacked there with their burning poison, he pressed the call button. "This is Hyunwoo. I need to speak with Administrator Subin immediately. It's about colony security. It can't wait." Administrator Subin arrived at Hyunwoo's workshop after dark, alone as he had requested. She was a tired-looking woman in her 50s, with gray streaking her black hair and lines around her eyes from too many difficult decisions. She had run Outpost Jindo 7 for 8 years, keeping it alive through pirate raids, supply shortages, and the constant threat of war. "This better be worth the secrecy," she said as Hyunwoo locked the door behind her. "I have 3 different crises waiting for me back at the office." "It's worth it," Hyunwoo said. "But you need to promise me something first. Promise you'll hear everything before you make a decision." Subin's eyes narrowed. "What have you done?" Instead of answering, Hyunwoo led her down to the hidden room. Jia sat beside Calyx, showing the Drakari warrior how to fold paper into simple shapes. Both looked up as the adults entered. Subin stopped dead in her tracks. Her hand moved toward the communicator on her belt. "Wait," Hyunwoo said quickly. "Just wait. Listen to what she has to say." "That's a Drakari commander," Subin said, her voice tight. "In your workshop, with your daughter sitting next to it like it's a pet." "Her name is Calyx," Jia said helpfully. "She's teaching me words in her language. Wanna hear?" "Jia, sweetheart, go upstairs," Hyunwoo said gently. "The adults need to talk." His daughter pouted but obeyed, climbing the stairs with her paper animals. When she was gone, Hyunwoo turned back to Subin. "She's a defector," he said. "She refused an order to massacre a human colony and was marked for death by her own people. She has intelligence about Drakari military plans." "And you believe her?" Subin asked, though her hand had moved away from the communicator. "Yes," Hyunwoo said simply. Calyx spoke through her translator, the device crackling with each word. "I understand your doubt. My people have given you no reason for trust. But I have information that could save thousands of your lives. I offer it freely." Subin pulled up a crate and sat down, her administrative mind clearly working through the implications. "Why should I believe anything you say?" "Because I have already lost everything," Calyx said. "My rank, my honor, my place in the Empire. I cannot return home. The only thing I have left is the chance to prevent more death. The death I was ordered to cause." "Tell me what you know," Subin said. For the next hour, Calyx laid out the Drakari Empire's plans. She spoke of 3 major colony targets, fleet positions, attack timelines, and the locations where the Empire was manufacturing their burning poison weapons. She provided command codes and communication frequencies. She drew maps in the dust on the floor, marking strategic positions with her claw. Hyunwoo watched Subin's face grow paler with each revelation. This was intelligence that could change the course of the war, information that military commanders would kill to obtain. "Busan Station is first," Calyx said. "In 23 days, unless my absence has changed their plans. But I do not think they will delay. The commander wants that victory." Subin stood up and paced the small space. "If this is true, if even half of this is true, we need to get you to Fleet Command immediately. Admiral Daewon needs to hear this directly." "And if it is not true?" Calyx asked. "What happens to the mechanic and his child who helped me?" The question hung in the air. Subin looked at Hyunwoo with something like pity in her eyes. "If you're lying, you've put yourself in an impossible position," she said to him. "Harboring an enemy combatant is treason. They could take Jia away, put you in prison." "I know," Hyunwoo said quietly. "But my daughter fed a starving creature she found in the dirt. She didn't see an enemy. She saw someone who needed help. What kind of father would I be if I punished her for having a good heart?" Subin was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. "I'll arrange a secure channel to Fleet Command, but this goes above my authority. Whatever happens next is out of my hands." The meeting with Admiral Daewon took place 2 days later via encrypted holocommunication. The Admiral appeared as a flickering blue projection in Hyunwoo's workshop, his military uniform crisp, and his expression skeptical. "Administrator Subin tells me you have a Drakari defector with critical intelligence," the Admiral said. his voice carrying the weight of command. "I'm listening, but I'm not convinced." Calyx stood before the projection, her broken arm still splinted, her scales still showing the damage from her ordeal. She spoke clearly and precisely, laying out everything she had told Subin and more. She answered every question the Admiral threw at her, providing details that someone without command-level access could never know. "The Third Fleet is commanded by Wrath Commander Sector," Calyx said. "He wears a scar across his left eye from a duel with another commander. He drinks firewater before battle and keeps the skull of his first kill in his private quarters. These things are not in your intelligence reports because they are personal details only his officers know." Admiral Day Wan was silent, conferring with someone off-screen. When he turned back, his expression was different. Less skeptical, more calculating. "We'll verify what we can," he said. "If your information checks out, we'll move the fleet into position. But understand this. If you're leading us into a trap, you won't live to regret it." "I understand," Calyx said. "I expect nothing less." "There's one more thing," the Admiral said, looking at Hyunwoo. "The man who harbored you, his daughter. What assurances do I have that they're not part of some elaborate intelligence operation?" Subin stepped forward in the projection. "I've known Hyunwoo for 8 years, Admiral. He's a mechanic who keeps to himself and loves his daughter. He's not a spy. He's just a man who made a difficult choice." "A choice that could be treason," the Admiral pointed out. "Or the choice that saves thousands of lives," Subin countered. "Isn't that what we're fighting for? The freedom to choose mercy over hatred?" The Admiral grunted. "Pretty words, Administrator. Let's see if they hold up against military reality. I'm sending a ship to collect the defector. You'll all be held in protective custody until we verify the intelligence." The channel closed, leaving them in the quiet hum of the workshop. "Protective custody," Hyunwoo repeated. "That's just prison with a nicer name." "It's better than a court-martial," Subin said grimly. "Barely." The next morning, word leaked somehow. Maybe through a communication technician, maybe through someone who saw the military transport arriving. By noon, everyone in Outpost Jindo 7 knew that Hyunwoo had been hiding a Drakari warrior in his workshop. The reaction was swift and ugly. Someone painted the word traitor across his workshop door. A group of colonists gathered outside, shouting for his arrest. The mother of one of Jia's classmates sent a message demanding the child be removed from school for everyone's safety. Hyunwoo stood at his window, watching the angry crowd and feeling the weight of his choice. Jia sat on the floor behind him, confused and frightened by the sudden hatred directed at her father. "Why are they so mad?" she asked, her voice small. "Because they're scared," Hyunwoo said. "And scared people sometimes do mean things." "But we helped her," Jia said. "We helped someone who was hurt. That's good." "Yes, sweetheart," Hyunwoo said, kneeling down to hold his daughter. "That's good. But sometimes doing good things makes people angry because they don't understand." Calyx watched from the corner, her translator silent. But Hyunwoo could see the emotion in her golden eyes. Guilt, perhaps. Or sorrow. Maybe aliens and humans weren't so different after all. The military transport arrived that evening, dispersing the crowd with its presence. Soldiers in full armor escorted them aboard, treating Calyx like a dangerous prisoner and Hyunwoo and Jia like suspects. As the ship lifted off, Hyunwoo looked down at the outpost that had been his home. He didn't know if he would ever see it again. He didn't know if he had made the right choice or destroyed his daughter's future. But he knew one thing. Jia had looked at a starving creature and seen someone who needed help. And he had chosen to teach her that compassion mattered, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard, that had to count for something. Fleet Command Headquarters was a massive station orbiting a gas giant, far from the front lines of the war. Hyunwoo had never seen anything so large or so heavily armed. Warships moved around it like fish around a reef, and the station itself bristled with weapons and shields. They were given quarters in the secure section, 3 connected rooms that were comfortable but clearly monitored. Guards stood outside their door at all times. Jia thought it was an adventure at first, but after 3 days of being confined, even she grew restless. "When can we go home?" she asked, pressing her face against the window to watch the ships outside. "I don't know," Hyunwoo admitted. He had been told nothing except to wait. Guards brought them food and basic supplies, but no information. No news about whether Calyx's intelligence had checked out or what would happen to them. On the fourth day, an intelligence officer came to their quarters. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a professional manner. Her name was Nari, and she carried herself like someone who had seen too many lies to trust easily. "I'm here to interview you both," she said, setting up a recording device on the table. Standard procedure for cases involving enemy contact. The interview lasted hours. Nari asked about every moment from when Gia found Calyx to when they boarded the transport. She wanted details about what Calyx had said, how she had acted, what information she had provided. She asked the same questions multiple times in different ways, looking for inconsistencies. Gia answered with a child's simple honesty. "She was hungry, so I gave her my rice. Then she cried, which was sad. So we helped her get better. Did she ever threaten you?" Nari asked. "No," Gia said, shaking her head. She was too hurt to be scary. And then she got nicer. "She taught me how to count in her language. Want to hear?" Nari's professional mask slipped for just a moment, showing something like surprise. "A Drakari warrior taught you to count in her language?" "She said it was payment for the food," Gia explained, "because she didn't have money to give me." After Gia was taken to another room by a guard, Nari turned her full attention to Hyunwoo. "You understand the situation you're in. Harboring an enemy combatant, failure to report possible espionage charges. This could destroy your life." "I know," Hyunwoo said, "but my daughter needed to learn something more important than following rules. She needed to learn that mercy matters." "Even for our enemies?" Nari asked. "Especially for our enemies," Hyunwoo said. "That's what makes us different from them. That's what we're supposed to be fighting for." Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned back in her chair. "For what it's worth, her information is checking out. We've verified fleet positions, communication codes, and attack schedules. Everything she told us has been accurate. Admiral Daewon is repositioning our forces based on her intelligence." Hyunwoo felt relief wash over him. So she was telling the truth. "About the military intelligence, yes," Nari said. "Now I need to verify the rest of her story. I need to understand why a Drakari commander would betray everything she knew." She took Hyunwoo to an observation room where he could watch the interrogation through one-way glass. Calyx sat in a chair designed for her larger frame, her broken arm now properly set in a medical cast. 3 officers surrounded her, including Admiral Daewon himself. "Tell us again about the orders you received," the Admiral said. "Every detail." Through her translator, Calyx spoke with the flat tone of someone recounting a nightmare. "Wrath Commander Sector called us to the command deck. We were orbiting a small human colony called Perth's Landing. He showed us the settlement scans. 2,000 humans. 400 were children under 10 cycles. And his orders?" Nari asked from beside the Admiral. "Deploy the burning poison," Calyx said. "Total elimination. Leave nothing alive. Show the humans the price of resistance." She paused. I asked why. The colony had no military value. No strategic importance. Just families and farmers. What did he say? Admiral Daewon pressed. He said it did not matter. The Empire demanded examples. Fear was a weapon sharper than any blade. The children would die to teach their parents the cost of defying us. Calyx's scales rippled with dark colors. "I looked at the scans of that colony. I saw the small ones playing in the streets. I thought of my own young before the war took them." Hyunwoo felt a chill. He hadn't known Calyx had children. "You have offspring?" Nari asked, clearly thinking the same thing. "Had," Calyx corrected. 2. They died when a human raid destroyed a civilian transport. "It was an accident," your forces said. "Wrong target. My mate died 3 days later from grief sickness." Her golden eyes fixed on the Admiral. "I hated your kind. I wanted revenge. That is why I joined the war fleet." "But you refused to take revenge on Perth's Landing," the Admiral said. "I was looking at those scans," Calyx continued, "watching the small humans play, and I realized something. They were not different from my own young. The ones who died. Killing them would not bring my offspring back. It would only make more parents feel what I felt. So you sabotaged the mission," Nari said. "I destroyed the poison canisters in the weapons bay," Calyx confirmed. "Set them to overload. The explosion damaged our ship and gave the colony time to evacuate. Sector declared me traitor. His guards shot my escape pod as I fled. I crashed on an asteroid, then another, then on your outpost world." She looked up at the one-way glass, as if she could see Hyunwoo watching. A small human found me. She did not see a warrior or an enemy. She saw someone who was hungry, and she gave me food. The room was silent. Admiral Daewon exchanged glances with his officers. Perth's landing was evacuated, one officer confirmed, checking a datapad. 3 weeks ago, emergency evacuation ordered after their sensors detected a Drakari cruiser acting strangely in orbit. The cruiser was damaged and withdrew. We thought it was a failed raid. It was not failed, Kalix said. 2,000 humans live because I chose mercy. Just as I live because a child chose mercy. Perhaps your kind and mine are not so different when we choose to be better than our worst selves. Admiral Daewon stood up. I'm recommending asylum status. You'll be kept in secure quarters and will work with our intelligence division. But you'll live. He paused at the door, and the mechanic and his daughter will be released with full pardons. What they did was technically illegal, but it saved lives. That has to count for something. Later that evening, Hyunwoo and Jia were allowed to visit Kalix in her new quarters. They were better than the holding cells, but still clearly a prison, monitored and locked. Jia ran to the Drakari warrior and hugged her leg, the highest point she could reach. They said you're staying here. Does that mean you can't come home with us? Kalix placed her good hand gently on the child's head, careful of her claws. I cannot return to your home, small one. But you gave me something more important. You showed me that mercy is stronger than hatred. That is a gift I will carry always. But you'll be lonely, Jia said, her eyes welling with tears. I will remember the child who fed me when I was starving, Kalix said. That memory will keep the loneliness away. Hyunwoo watched his daughter say goodbye to the alien warrior, who had become an unlikely friend. He thought about the chain of compassion that had started with a simple act of sharing food. A child's kindness had saved a warrior. That warrior's choice had saved a colony, and now her intelligence might save thousands more. Will you be okay? Hyunwoo asked Kalix as they prepared to leave. I do not know, Kalix admitted, but I am alive and I have purpose again. I will help your people stop the Empire's worst plans. I will honor the mercy you showed me. She looked at Jia. And I will try to be worthy of the trust a small human gave to a broken warrior. As they walked back to their quarters, Jia held her father's hand tightly. Daddy, do you think other Drakari are like Kalix? Nice underneath the scary parts? I don't know, Hyunwoo said honestly. But I think if we keep showing mercy, maybe some of them will choose to be better. Like she did. Good, Jia said firmly. Because being mean is tiring. Being nice is easier. Hyunwoo smiled at his daughter's wisdom. Out of the mouths of children came the simplest and most profound truths. Maybe that was what humanity needed to remember. That mercy and kindness weren't weakness. They were the hardest and bravest choices of all. 6 weeks had passed since Hyunwoo and Jia returned to Outpost Jindo 7. The angry graffiti had been cleaned from the workshop door, but the community's hostility remained. Some neighbors still wouldn't speak to them. Parents kept their children away from Jia at school. But Hyunwoo kept working, kept fixing machines, kept being a father. Time would heal the wounds, or it wouldn't. He had made his choice and would live with it. The news from Fleet Command was good. Using Kalix's intelligence, Admiral Daewon had intercepted the attack on Busan Station. The human fleet had positioned themselves perfectly, catching the Drakari forces by surprise. The enemy had been driven back with heavy losses, and the colony was safe. 2 other planned attacks had been stopped the same way. Thousands of lives saved because a 6-year-old girl had shared her lunch. Then came the broadcast that changed everything. Hyunwoo was working on a damaged hauler when his communicator chimed with an emergency alert. The screen showed a Drakari military transmission being broadcast across human space. His blood ran cold as he recognized the figure on screen. Kalix stood in what looked like a Drakari command center, wearing prison restraints and surrounded by armed warriors. Her scales were dull, her wounds untreated. Standing beside her was a massive Drakari with a scar across his left eye. Wrath Commander Sector. Humans. The commander's voice came through the translator in harsh, clipped tones. You harbor a traitor. One who betrayed her empire, her honor, and her people. We have tracked her to your fleet command station. He placed a clawed hand on Kalix's shoulder, making her flinch. She is ours again, and she will face justice for her crimes. The transmission showed Kalix being dragged away. The message was clear, this was a warning. This was what happened to those who showed mercy to humans. Hyunwoo's workshop door burst open. Jia ran in from school, her face streaked with tears. "Daddy, they have Calyx. The dragon lady is in trouble." "I know, sweetheart," Hyunwoo said, pulling her close. He didn't know how the Drakari had found her, how they had gotten to her. Fleet Command was supposed to be the most secure location in human space. His communicator chimed again. This time it was Administrator Subin. "They infiltrated the station 3 days ago," she said without preamble. "Sleeper agents disguised as maintenance workers. They grabbed Calyx and fought their way to a hidden ship. By the time security responded, they were gone." "Where did they take her?" Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew. "Back to Drakari space," Subin confirmed. "They're going to execute her publicly. Make an example. Show their own people what happens to traitors, and show us that helping defectors has consequences." Jia pulled on her father's sleeve. "We have to save her, Daddy. She saved all those people. We can't let the bad people hurt her." "It's not that simple," Hyunwoo started to say. "Why not?" Jia demanded with the absolute certainty of childhood. "She needed help, so we helped her. She needs help now, so we help her now." Hyunwoo looked at his daughter, at her tear-stained face and fierce determination. He thought about everything Calyx had done, how she had refused to murder children, how she had given up everything to do what was right, how she had saved thousands of human lives. "You're right," he said quietly, "but I don't know how." "That's being discussed at Fleet Command right now," Subin said through the communicator. Admiral Daewon called an emergency council. "Public opinion is split. Some say we should negotiate. Others say it's a trap. Most say she's already dead and there's nothing we can do." "What do you think?" Hyunwoo asked. Subin was quiet for a moment. "I think a Drakari commander gave up everything to save human children. And I think if we let her die without even trying to help, we prove that we're no better than the ones who wanted to kill those children in the first place." The debate at Fleet Command was fierce. Hyunwoo watched the public broadcasts, listened to the military analysts argue. Some said a rescue mission was suicide. The execution was scheduled to take place in 3 days on a Drakari military station, deep in enemy territory. Getting there would be nearly impossible. Fighting through their defenses would be suicide. But then something unexpected happened. Lower-ranking officers started volunteering for the mission. First a few, then dozens. Young pilots, Marines, intelligence officers. People who had heard Calyx's story, who had been saved when their colonies weren't attacked because of her information. A pilot named Jiwoo spoke at a public forum, her words broadcast across human space. Calyx looked at orders to kill children and said no. She lost everything for that choice. If we abandon her now, what does that say about us? What kind of people does that make us? The question resonated. Public opinion began to shift. Families from Perth's Landing and Busan Station sent messages to Fleet Command, demanding action. Children wrote letters to the Admiral. Someone started a petition that got millions of signatures in 24 hours. And in a small workshop on Outpost Jindo 7, a 6-year-old girl drew a picture of a human child holding hands with a dragon lady under a sun and stars. She sent it to Admiral Daewon with a simple message: "Please save our friend." The Admiral looked at that drawing for a long time. Then he made his decision. The rescue mission launched with 3 fast attack ships and a crew of volunteers. Their chances of success were estimated at 30%. Their chances of all returning alive were less than 10%. But they went anyway. Hyunwoo watched the news coverage with his heart in his throat, Jia pressed against his side. The mission details were classified, but everyone knew what was happening. Humanity was attempting something foolish and brave and desperately important. The ships jumped into Drakari space 57 hours after launching. They fought through defensive patrols, taking heavy damage. 2 ships were destroyed, but one made it through to the military station where Calyx was being held. The assault team had 12 minutes before overwhelming reinforcements arrived. They fought their way through corridors filled with Drakari warriors, taking casualties at every corner. The mission commander was killed. Half the assault team died in the first 5 minutes, but they reached the execution chamber. Calyx stood on a raised platform, surrounded by Drakari officials and guards. Wrath Commander Sector stood beside her, ready to carry out the sentence himself. The chamber was packed with witnesses, broadcast across the Drakari Empire. The human Marines burst through the doors with weapons firing. The chamber erupted into chaos. Sector moved to strike Calyx down before she could be rescued, but she fought back with her good arm, striking him across the face with her restraint chains. The firefight was brutal and close range. More Marines died, but they formed a protective circle around Calyx and fought their way back to their ship, leaving a trail of bodies behind them. The ship barely made it to the jump point, burning at maximum thrust with half its engines damaged. Drukhari fighters pursued, firing relentlessly. The ship jumped with hull breaches and failing systems, arriving at the rendezvous point with seconds to spare before life support would have failed. When the news reached human space that the mission had succeeded, that Calyx had been rescued, people celebrated in the streets, not because they had won a battle, but because they had proven something important about who they were. 1 week later, Calyx was well enough to travel. Instead of returning to Fleet Command, she requested permission to visit Outpost Jindo 7. Admiral Daewon granted it personally. The transport landed on a sunny afternoon. Hyunwoo stood outside his workshop with Jia holding his hand tightly. They watched as Calyx descended the ramp, moving slowly but under her own power. Her wounds were healing and her scales had regained some of their shine. Jia couldn't contain herself. She broke free from her father's hand and ran toward the Dragon Lady. Calyx knelt down carefully as the child crashed into her, wrapping small arms around the warrior's neck. "You came back," Jia said, half laughing and half crying. "You came back. I promised I would remember you," Calyx said softly through her translator. "How could I not return to thank the child who taught me that mercy exists?" Hyunwoo approached more slowly. He and Calyx looked at each other for a moment. Then the Drukhari warrior bowed her head in a gesture of profound respect. "Your people risked everything to save me," she said. "Many died so that I might live. I do not understand this. In the Empire, we do not do such things for traitors." "That's why we're different," Hyunwoo said simply. "You gave up everything to save our children. We couldn't let you die without trying to return the favor. That's what makes us human." News of the rescue had spread across the galaxy. Other Drukhari warriors, hearing the story, began to question their orders. Some defected, others refused missions targeting civilians. The Empire tried to suppress the story, but it was too late. The question had been planted. If humans would risk everything to save one Drukhari who showed mercy, what did that say about the honor of the Empire? 3 months later, the first Drukhari peace delegation made contact with human authorities. They wanted to discuss ending the war. The Empire was fracturing, divided between those who wanted to continue the conquest and those who had been inspired by Calyx's story. The war wouldn't end quickly or cleanly.